Hi there, welcome to IMG 431 Advanced Imaging Practicum. My name is Quentin Moore. I will be your secondary instructor in this particular course. I've worked with many of you to get this process started, and I imagine that many of you are anxious to continue your education in an advanced imaging modality that really appeals to you. So I'm excited for you in that regard. The primary instructor in this particular course, throughout this course, is going to be Darcy Carasso. So she'll check in with you each week, or you'll check in with her each week, and I'll show you what that process will really look like. But if you do have any questions or concerns as the course moves on, I will still be a part of this course. So I'll still see the conversations that are taking place and those types of things. So if you ever want to reach out directly to me, don't hesitate to do that. As I am a secondary instructor in this particular course. So just to give you a little bit of a walkthrough on how we're approaching the clinical experience, you can see just here are the general objectives. So regardless of modality, from an expectation standpoint, we expect you to be able to perform these exams in your given modality and perform them well. Along with that, we expect you to apply sound patient-centered care practices, applying patient comfort, answering questions, documenting history, and really doing all that's expected of a technologist to continue their clinical experience in learning. Looking at required textbooks, there are none in this particular course, but I do have some links to study resources based on the modality that you're studying. So I would suggest that you click onto some of these resources. A lot of them are registry prep related types of resources, but that should help. And as you're getting started in this particular course, what you should see and notice is that there is a bit of an orientation. So that is where I'm going to direct you to get started first in this particular course. So when you click onto the orientation, what you'll notice is that the information is just housed within this area. So I want you to familiarize yourself with the clinical policies. At this point or soon, you should all have your Castle Branch requirements finalized. In order to get started with clinical, all Castle Branch requirements must be completed. So just keep that in mind. If there's anything that's not done, we can't have you start clinical until that point. If you are participating in a CT clinical or a mammography clinical, we are required to provide a radiation dosimeter. We use OSLs, or optically stimulated luminescent radiation dosimeters. Within the program, how this process is really going to work, especially if you're in the remote situation, is that we will mail you that OSL. Once that OSL expires, then you will mail that OSL back to us. Is how the process really works. If you have additional questions about that, definitely address those with me. As far as the timekeeping protocol goes, essentially what we ask is for a technologist to log you in and to log you out with initials each day that you're actually in clinic. In regards to that timekeeping protocol, it does depend on the amount of hours that you're registered for. So if you registered for 3 credit hours, then you're expected by the end of the semester to have 315 clinical hours. Your grade is dependent on the completion of those hours. So if you don't do enough hours, you're not going to be able to earn the credit in this particular course. So this part's really, really important. Additionally, then beyond those timekeeping protocols, I want you to familiarize yourself with ART clinical requirements. I'll have additional videos that document what this process really looks like for the given modalities for CT and MRI and mammography. But this link is here for you to be able to look at any requirements that are a part of the certification process. Now, next up is something that I want all of you to do, and this is blood-borne pathogen training and colorblind screening. Believe it or not, colorblind screening is a part of the affiliation agreements for some of our clinical facilities. So I do want you to make sure that you go through this test, as well as complete the blood-borne pathogen training prior to starting in the clinical site. So it's 2 small commitments here. They're not going to take you a ton of time to really get through, but do make sure you complete those for compliance purposes. Now, with that information in mind, there are some resources for you. So the weekly chat is a place where you're going to check in primarily with Darcy each week, and what you're going to do is just make sure you click on the chat instructions, and what we're going to ask is that essentially you're documenting your repetitions each week. So how many reps have you earned? What are those specific categories that you've earned in? What problems are you having? So a lot of coaching that can take place within this particular section of things. So please use it with that in mind. As you're struggling with something, tell us what it is, and then we'll see if we can get you the resources to help if we can. Additionally then, so that's the general instructions. Those weekly chats are all set up to be private between yourself and the instructor. So that's at least how they're initially default set it. Attendance calendars can be found here. Just download the attendance calendars that are pertinent to you, or print the attendance calendars that are pertinent to you. Some of you are starting at different points, so the only ones that you're required to submit are the ones that, when you're actually attending. So if you're not getting started with clinical until October, you'll just need to submit October, November, and December. If you're getting started in August, start with August, and then September, October, etc. Beyond those ideas here, we do have a couple other things that are pertinent to your grade. If you're going through a mammography clinical, you're going to want to click onto this weekly clinical performance evaluation form. That is something that you'll need to submit to the course each week, and something that will be completed by a technologist, a registered technologist at that facility. Additionally, that same form is here for CT and MRI. Their forms are a little bit different, but as far as the mammography versus this form, but just make sure you download the appropriate form, and you'll also submit that weekly. In mammography, there are a few additional requirements that need to be done. So you can see some additional information on some steps in the fulfillment plan. So Mammography Quality Standards Act really requires a lot more documentation for that particular modality than the required documentation for others. So I wanted to at least provide that information as far as what that looks like. And really, the additional forms that are going to need to be completed is the documentation of your first 25 reps, the unit training for digital mammo and breast tomosynthesis is here as well. So just make sure that you download and complete any forms that are pertinent to your facilities. Aside from that, that's really the kind of the general orientation content, with the exception of your syllabus. So you can see the syllabus is found here, with pertinent contact information that will load up. So when you're looking at the information here, you can see Darcy's contact information. You can always contact either one of us in the virtual office or by Canvas email. Mercy College email is here also. And then you can see respective phone numbers for each of us as well. Course description, prereqs, refund dates. So regardless of when you start the course, these are the refund dates that are in place. So just note that even if you don't start until October, these refund dates are still kind of where they're at based on when this course actually opens up. Course objectives by the end of the semester, some additional registry prep types of information. So again, please explore that either here on this link or via the course homepage. General information in terms of grades. We do use a weighting system within clinical. The weighted system really puts a lot of emphasis on clinical attendance with appropriate time logs, which means that the signatures just need to be in place. Your attendance, you have to complete your minimum. Essentially, that's an all or nothing. If you're not completing your minimum, then you're not getting your 80%, which subsequently means that you're not going to, unfortunately, not going to be successful in the course. So time is very, very important in this particular process. Additionally, then beyond that, your weekly clinical evaluations and your weekly discussion check-ins, you can kind of see where those fall respectively. So in essence, it's 20% of your grade. If you don't do it, you're not going to do well in the course, and we're not going to be able to help you along the way. So that is something that is going to be needed. to make sure that you're doing everything that you need to do to be successful in that modality that you want to learn next. As far as attendance goes, here's some general information on attendance. Really, attendance and professionalism are paramount. You need to make sure that you arrive on time. Sometimes I get complaints from the clinical facilities about no call, no shows. Those types of things, they're going to have consequences in terms of your grade. So they are going to result in grade deductions as outlined here. So kind of a big deal, but you know, it's this is a job interview for you in this new modality, so make sure you take that idea serious. Additional information can be found here, so just make sure you read through some of these additional grading stipulation ideas that are in the syllabus. So weekly, if you're used to the course schedule, essentially all you have to do each week is that you are going to be asked to submit one weekly evaluation and one weekly progress update in Canvas. So that's going to be essentially your course schedule as long as you're enrolled in clinical from the point where you actually begin that clinical. So once you actually start to enter the clinical environment is where this process will really begin. Additionally, then, you can see some of the college policies are here. If you have any questions about the college policies, please let me know. I'm more than happy to address any of those that you have. Looking for support resources, you can see the library resources, career professional development. So if you haven't updated your resume in a while with the new modality and the new training that you're doing, it may be a good point to update your resume, and you can see some information on how to do that here. Other resources you can see are listed here as well. So hopefully this brief orientation information session really helps you understand what you are to do in the course. And like I said, as far as a documentation perspective, I'll provide additional updates from a modality by modality standpoint. That way you understand what you're supposed to do for CT and what you're supposed to do for MRI and what you're supposed to do for mammography. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out to either myself or Professor Darcy Carasso as well. Thank you so much, and best of luck as you complete this new experience and go through this new journey.